Form FW-003 is how the court answers your FW-001 fee waiver request. Here is what granted, denied, and partial outcomes mean, the deadlines attached to each, and what to do next. What is Form FW-003? Form FW-003, Order on Court Fee Waiver, is the California Judicial Council form the Superior Court uses to state its decision about your request to file papers or receive court services without paying the usual fees and costs. It is issued under Government Code Section 68634E and California Rules of Court, Rule 3.52, and responds to a request to waive court fees, Form FW-001, or a request to waive additional court fees. For background on how to request a fee waiver in the first place, see our guide on Form FW-001, Request to Waive Court Fees. Who completes FW-003. You do not fill out FW-003 yourself. After you submit FW-001, the court reviews the information you provided about public benefits, household income, or expenses, and a judicial officer or clerk completes FW-003 to record the decision. The form is explicit about this on its face. Read this form carefully. All checked boxes are court orders. The three possible outcomes. Section 4 of FW-003 lays out three possible paths, each with its own checkbox and its own consequences: granted, 4A, denied, 4B, and more information needed, 4C. If your request is granted. If the court checks the box granting your request, item 4A1, fee waiver lists the standard court fees and costs you no longer have to pay, including filing papers in Superior Court, making and certifying copies, sheriff's fee to give notice, court fee for a phone hearing, giving notice and certificates, sending papers to another court department, a separate checkbox, item 4A2, additional fee waiver, can also waive further costs like jury fees and expenses, fees for a peace officer to testify, court-appointed expert fees, and court-appointed interpreter fees for a witness, if those boxes are checked. Pro tip: read Section 4A carefully rather than assuming everything is covered. If your request is denied, Section 4B covers denials, and the form separates this into two distinct reasons that carry different next steps. Your request was incomplete. If the court checks this reason, you generally have 10 days after the clerk gives notice of the order to either pay your fees and costs or file a new, revised request that includes whatever information was missing, which the order will list. You are not eligible based on the information provided. If the court checks this reason instead, it states the specific reasons you did not qualify. The court also encloses a blank request for hearing about court fee waiver order, Form FW-006. You generally have 10 days after the clerk gives notice to either pay your fees and costs in full or ask for a hearing using FW-006 to present more information. FW-003 includes a direct warning here. If you miss the stated deadline, the court cannot process your request for a hearing or the court papers you originally filed with your request. If those papers included a notice of appeal, the appeal may be dismissed. Calendar this deadline the day you receive the order. If the court needs more information, Section 4C applies when the court cannot decide based on what you submitted and needs to ask you questions in person. If this box is checked, you're required to appear in court on the date and time listed on the order, and the form states the specific questions about your eligibility that the hearing will address. The order may also list specific items of proof you'll typically bring, if they are reasonably available. If you do not appear at that hearing, the form states the judge generally will deny your request to waive court fees, and you will then have 10 days to pay your fees. Your ongoing obligations after a granted waiver. Even a full grant is not necessarily the end of the story. FW-003 carries an ongoing notice that applies for as long as your case continues. The court can order you to answer questions about your finances later in the case, and can order you to pay back waived fees if it finds you are able to. If you do not pay back fees the court orders repaid, the court can also charge collection fees. If your financial circumstances improve during the case in a way that increases your ability to pay, you're required to notify the trial court within 5 days using Form FW-003. How you receive your FW-003 order. FW-003 documents exactly how it was delivered to you, which matters because your deadlines generally run from the date the clerk gives notice, not from the date the order was signed. On the final page, a clerk's certificate of service records whether the order was handed to you and your attorney, if any, directly at the court, or mailed first class to the addresses on file. If it was mailed, the certificate can note that a separate certificate of mailing is attached, and it states the city and date the mailing went out. This is also where FW-003 addresses accessibility. Common mistakes to avoid. Assuming every fee and cost in your case is covered just because the waiver was granted, instead of checking exactly which boxes were checked in Section 4A. Missing the 10-day deadline after a denial or incomplete finding, which can prevent the court from processing a hearing request or your original filing. Skipping a scheduled hearing under Section 4C, which results in an automatic denial and a new 10-day payment deadline. Not notifying the court within 5 days if your financial situation improves, as required once a waiver has been granted. Forgetting that a settlement of $10,000 or more in a civil case can trigger a lien for the waived fee amount. If keeping track of all of this by hand feels like a lot, that is exactly what Virdix is built for. The wizard at Virdix.co walks you through these same questions in plain language and prepares your FW-003 for you. Virdix is a document preparation service, not a law firm, so this is not legal advice, but it can help make sure your paperwork is complete and consistent from the start.